The vast expanse of the Milky Way galaxy bustled with life. Thousands of alien races had formed a grand alliance, calling themselves the Galactic Confederation. They ruled over millions of stars, their ships zipping between worlds in the blink of an eye. The Confederation thought they knew everything about their cosmic home. But they were wrong. On a small blue planet circling an average yellow star, a young race was about to change everything. Humans, the inhabitants of Earth, had just taken their first steps into space. They had built cities on the moon, sent people to Mars, and were now looking beyond their solar system. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Earth's first faster-than-light ship, the ESS Hope. She gazed at the stars through the view screen, her dark eyes reflecting the pinpricks of light. "It's time," she said to her crew. "Let's go meet the neighbors." With a flash of light, the Hope jumped into hyperspace, leaving the solar system behind. Days later, they arrived at the edge of Confederation space. The crew gasped as they saw the massive alien stations and ships. It was like a bustling city in space, with vessels of all shapes and sizes moving about. "Open a channel," Sarah ordered. Her communications officer nodded, and soon an alien face appeared on the screen. The being had blue skin, large eyes, and tentacles where a mouth should be. "Greetings," Sarah said, trying to hide her nervousness. "We are representatives of Earth. We come in peace and wish to join your galactic community." The alien's eyes narrowed. It spoke, its words translated by the ship's computer. "Another primitive race seeking to join us. How quaint." Sarah frowned. This wasn't the welcome she had expected. "We may be new to interstellar travel, but we have much to offer. Our technology is nothing compared to ours." The alien cut her off. "We've seen 100 worlds like yours. You're barely out of your stone age compared to us." The alien's words stung, but Sarah kept her cool. "We request a meeting with your leaders. Surely you can't judge an entire species without even talking to us." The alien seemed to sigh, its tentacles rippling. "Very well. You may dock at Station 7, but don't expect much. The Confederation has standards, and I doubt your species can meet them." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in silence. "Well," Sarah's first officer said, "that could have gone better." Sarah nodded, her jaw set. "They may think we're primitive now, but we'll show them what humanity is capable of." The ESS Hope approached the massive space station. It was like a giant metal flower, with petals stretching out into space. Each petal was the size of a city, housing millions of beings from across the galaxy. As they docked, Sarah couldn't help but feel small. Earth's greatest ship was dwarfed by even the smallest alien vessels around them. But she squared her shoulders and led her team off the ship. They had a point to prove. The inside of the station was a riot of colors and sounds. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved about, many giving curious or dismissive looks to the humans. Sarah and her team were led to a large chamber where the Confederation Council waited. The council members sat on high chairs, looking down at the humans. Their leader, a tall, willowy being with shimmering skin, spoke. "So, you are the humans. Why should we allow you to join our esteemed Confederation?" Sarah stepped forward. "Respected Council, humanity may be young, but we are quick learners. We've overcome great challenges on our world and are ready to face the challenges of the galaxy. We offer our unique perspective, our creativity, and our determination." The council members murmured among themselves. Some laughed outright. The leader held up a hand for silence. "Your species has barely mastered faster-than-light travel. You have no colonies beyond your own system. Your technology is centuries behind ours. What could you possibly offer us?" Sarah felt her temper rising, but she kept her voice calm. "Give us a chance to prove ourselves. Set us a task, any task. If we succeed, consider our application. If we fail, we'll leave without complaint." The council seemed amused by this. They huddled together, discussing in low voices. Finally, the leader turned back to Sarah. "Very well, human. We will give you one chance. One chance to prove your worth to the Galactic Confederation. As Sarah and her team left the chamber, she couldn't help but feel they had just stepped onto a much larger stage. The galaxy might mock them now, but soon they would show everyone what humanity could do. The adventure was just beginning, and the stars themselves would bear witness to the rise of Earth. The vast halls of the Galactic Confederation's central station buzzed with activity. Aliens of all shapes and sizes rushed about, their voices a mix of worried chirps, growls, and whistles. Something was wrong. In a high-security room, the Confederation Council gathered. Their faces, usually calm and superior, now showed fear. A hologram floated in the center of the room, showing a star map of the galaxy's outer rim. "They're coming," a reptilian counselor hissed, pointing at red dots spreading across the map. "The Void Swarm has returned." The leader, the tall, willowy alien who had dismissed the humans earlier, leaned forward. "How many of our outposts have fallen?" "7 in the last solar cycle," another counselor replied, their tentacles waving nervously. "Our forces are no match for them." As the council argued, Captain Sarah Chen and her team waited outside. They had been summoned but didn't know why. Sarah paced the hallway, her boots clicking on the polished floor. "What do you think is going on?" her first officer, Mike, asked. Sarah shook her head. "No idea. But judging by all the panicked aliens, it can't be good." Suddenly, the doors slid open. A small blob-like alien oozed out. "The council will see you now," it burbled. As they entered, Sarah felt the tension in the room. The council members looked at the humans with a mix of desperation and distaste. The leader spoke, his shimmering skin dulled with stress. "Humans, we face a grave threat. An enemy we thought long defeated has returned. The Void Swarm, consumers of worlds, are attacking our outer colonies." Sarah's eyes widened. "And you want our help?" A bitter laugh came from one of the counselors. "As if you could help." "No, we merely inform you because this threat will soon engulf your primitive world too." The leader held up a hand for silence. We are considering all options. Your species claimed to be resourceful. Now is your chance to prove it." A hologram appeared, showing a massive, dark ship. It looked like a twisted version of a manta ray, its surface crawling with smaller craft. "This is a swarm hive," the leader explained. "They consume everything in their path, using the resources to make more of themselves." Sarah studied the image, her mind racing. "Have you tried negotiating with them?" The council's laughter was harsh. "Negotiate? They are a plague, not a civilization. They do not speak. They do not reason. They only consume." Mike stepped forward. "What about your weapons? Surely you have something that can stop them." A insectoid counselor clicked its mandibles. "Our most powerful weapons barely scratch their hulls. Their technology is beyond even ours." Sarah took a deep breath. "Let us help. Earth may be young, but we faced our own challenges. Maybe a fresh perspective is what you need." The council members looked at each other, uncertainty clear on their alien faces. Finally, the leader nodded. "Very well. You may join our war council, but do not expect to be taken seriously. This is far beyond your comprehension." As they left the chamber, Sarah's mind was whirling. The fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy, was at stake. How could they, a species barely out of their own solar system, help against such a threat? Back on the ESS Hope, Sarah called a meeting of her crew. "All right, people," she said, looking at each of them. "We've got a big problem and an even bigger opportunity. The galaxy's in danger, and believe it or not, we might be the ones to save it." She explained the situation, watching as her crew's faces shifted from disbelief to determination. "They think we're primitive," Sarah continued, "but that might be our advantage. We'll think of solutions they'd never consider. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to innovate when our backs are against the wall. Well, our backs are against the wall of the entire galaxy now." Mike grinned. So just another Tuesday for humanity, right? A chuckle went around the room, easing the tension slightly. Sarah nodded. Exactly. We've got work to do, people. Let's show the galaxy what humans are really capable of. As the crew dispersed to their stations, Sarah looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a terrifying enemy was approaching. But she felt a spark of hope. Humanity had faced extinction before, on their own world. They had always found a way to survive, to thrive. Now, they would do it again. Not just for Earth, but for every world in the galaxy. The Void Swarm was coming, but humanity was ready to fight. The war room of the Galactic Confederation buzzed with activity. Holograms flickered, showing the advance of the Void Swarm. Alien commanders argued in a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and rumbles. In the midst of this chaos stood Captain Sarah Chen and her team, watching and listening. The swarm has taken 3 more systems, a tall, bird-like alien squawked. Our defenses are falling like leaves in a storm. A bulbous creature with too many eyes wobbled nervously. We must retreat. Abandon the outer colonies and fortify the core worlds. The council leader slammed a hand on the table. Silence. We will not abandon our people. Sarah stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. If I may make a suggestion. The room fell quiet, all eyes turning to the human. Some looked curious, others dismissive. You claim your weapons can't penetrate their defenses, Sarah said. But have you tried thinking outside the box? Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. A reptilian commander hissed. And what would you know of advanced warfare, human? Your species still fights with projectile weapons. Sarah smiled. Exactly. Sometimes old tech can surprise you. We've been studying the swarm's tactics. They expect energy weapons, shields. But what about good old-fashioned kinetic impacts? She nodded to Mike, who activated a hologram. It showed a human design. Massive railguns mounted on asteroids. We can launch chunks of metal at near-light speeds, Sarah explained. No fancy energy fields can stop that kind of impact. And the best part, the debris from the impacts becomes more ammunition. The aliens murmured among themselves. Some looked intrigued, others skeptical. The council leader leaned forward. An interesting idea, human. But how would you deploy such weapons? Your ships are too few and too small. Sarah's grin widened. That's where you come in. We provide the designs and expertise. You provide the resources and ships to carry our weapons. For the first time, the aliens looked at the humans with something approaching respect. It could work, the bird-like commander admitted grudgingly. But it's a big risk, if it fails. If it fails, we're no worse off than we are now. Sarah countered. But if it works, we might just turn the tide. The council leader nodded slowly. Very well, Captain Chen. We will give your plan a chance. But know this, if you fail, the consequences for Earth will be severe. Sarah stood tall. We won't fail. Humanity has a habit of beating impossible odds. As the meeting dispersed, Mike approached Sarah. That was bold, Captain. You really think this will work? Sarah's face was determined. It has to. But this is just the beginning. We need to get creative, think of solutions these aliens would never consider. Back on the ESS Hope, Sarah called her top engineers and scientists together. All right, people. We've got a galaxy to save and not much time to do it. I want ideas, no matter how crazy they might seem. A young engineer raised her hand. Captain, what if we use the swarm's tactics against them? They consume resources to replicate, right? What if we could poison that process somehow? Sarah nodded approvingly. Good thinking. What else? We could use their communication against them, a communications officer suggested. If we could crack their code, maybe we could feed them false information, make them fight each other. Ideas flew back and forth. Some were discarded, others developed further. As Sarah watched her crew work, she felt a surge of pride. This was humanity at its best. Creative, determined, unwilling to give up even in the face of overwhelming odds. Hours later, Sarah stood before the Confederation Council again. This time, she wasn't alone. Her entire team was with her, each ready to present their ideas. "Honored Council," Sarah began, "you asked for our help. Well, here it is. Not just one plan, but dozens. We've got designs for weapons, strategies for defense, and ideas that might just turn the swarm's strengths into weaknesses." The council members looked at each other, surprise evident on their alien faces. "You've been busy, humans," the leader said. "Let's hear these ideas of yours." As her team began their presentations, Sarah saw something she hadn't seen before in the eyes of the Confederation. Hope. The tiny human fleet might have been mocked at first, but now it was becoming clear. Sometimes the smallest players on the galactic stage could make the biggest difference. Humanity was ready to show the galaxy what they could do. The Void Swarm was in for a surprise. The vast emptiness of space was shattered by the arrival of the human fleet, if you could call it a fleet. To the massive Confederation ships surrounding them, the human vessels looked like toys. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the ESS Hope, now the flagship of Earth's contribution to the war effort. Around her, her crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces a mix of determination and nervousness. "All ships reporting ready, Captain," Mike said from his station. Sarah nodded. "All right, let's show them what we can do." The comms crackled to life, and an alien face appeared on the screen. It was the Confederation Fleet Commander, a being that looked like a cross between an octopus and a tree. "Human vessels," it said, its voice translating as a series of musical tones. "Take your position at the rear of the formation. Try not to get in the way." Sarah bit back a retort. "Acknowledged, Commander. But remember, we're here to help. Don't count us out just yet." The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Very well. The Void Swarm approaches. Prepare for battle." As the transmission cut off, Sarah turned to her crew. "You heard the commander. Battle stations, everyone. And remember, we've got a few surprises for both the swarm and our allies." The crew sprang into action. On the main view screen, Sarah could see the Confederation fleet spreading out in a classic defensive formation. Their massive ships bristled with energy weapons, shield generators humming to life. And then they came. The Void Swarm burst out of hyperspace, a writhing mass of black ships that seemed to devour the very light around them. They moved with an eerie, insect-like coordination, spreading out to engulf the Confederation fleet. "Here we go," Sarah muttered. "Activate Operation Slingshot." At her command, several human ships broke formation. They were small and fast, darting between the lumbering Confederation vessels. From their holds, they released what looked like simple metal spheres. The Confederation commander's voice boomed over the comms. "Human vessels, return to formation immediately." Sarah ignored him. "Steady, people. Wait for it." The Void Swarm ships closed in, their attention focused on the larger Confederation vessels. They barely seemed to notice the small human ships or the spheres they had deployed. That was their mistake. "Now," Sarah ordered. The metal spheres suddenly came to life. Hidden thrusters activated, sending them hurtling towards the swarm at incredible speeds. As they flew, they began to spin faster and faster. The first sphere hit a swarm ship. There was no explosion, no flash of energy. Instead, the sphere simply tore through the alien vessel, its immense kinetic energy ripping through shields and hull as if they were paper. "Direct hit," Mike shouted. "The railgun spheres are working." Around the battlefield, more spheres found their targets. Swarm ships began to break apart, debris spinning off into space. The debris itself became deadly, smashing into other swarm vessels. The Confederation ships opened fire, their energy weapons finding weakened targets. For the first time since the war began, the Void Swarm was taking heavy losses. But the battle was far from over. The swarm, recovering from their surprise, began to adapt. They started targeting the human ships, recognizing them as the source of the new threat. Evasive maneuvers, Sarah ordered as a swarm of smaller enemy craft headed their way. Activate point defense systems. The ESS Hope shuddered as it unleashed a barrage of old-fashioned, chemically propelled bullets. The simple projectiles tore through the lightly armored swarm fighters, which had been designed to withstand energy weapons, not physical impacts. Across the battlefield, other human ships were unleashing their own surprises. Some released clouds of nanites, programmed to infiltrate and disrupt swarm systems. Others deployed electronic warfare suites, jamming the enemy's communications. The Confederation ships, initially shocked by the effectiveness of the primitive human weapons, began to coordinate their efforts with the Earth vessels. Energy weapons and kinetic impacts worked in tandem, tearing apart the swarm formations. As the battle raged on, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. They were holding their own. The tiny human fleet, once mocked and dismissed, was now at the forefront of the fight. But the war was far from over. The void swarm was vast, and this was just one battle. As Sarah watched another enemy ship explode under the combined fire of human and Confederation weapons, she knew that the real test was yet to come. Humanity had proven they could fight. Now, they needed to prove they could win. The battle raged on, a deadly dance of ships and weapons across the star-studded void. Captain Sarah Chen's eyes darted across the tactical displays, her mind racing to keep up with the ever-changing situation. "Status report," she barked, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Mike's fingers flew over his console. "We've destroyed about 30% of the swarm ships in this sector, Captain, but they're adapting to our tactics. The railgun spheres aren't as effective now." Sarah nodded grimly. She had expected this. The void swarm was nothing if not adaptable. "Time for Phase 2, she said. "Deploy the Trojan horse." Across the human fleet, a signal went out. Several ships that had been hanging back suddenly surged forward, heading straight for the heart of the swarm formation. The Confederation commander's voice crackled over the comms. "Human vessels, what are you doing? Fall back immediately." Sarah ignored the command. "All ships provide covering fire. We need to get the Trojans through." The human ships unleashed everything they had. Railguns, missiles, even old-fashioned projectile weapons filled space with deadly projectiles. The Confederation ships, after a moment of hesitation, joined in, their energy weapons carving swaths through the swarm. Under this barrage, the Trojan ships pushed forward. Swarm vessels moved to intercept them, their black hulls absorbing hit after hit. "Come on," Sarah muttered, her fists clenched. "Just a little closer." One of the Trojan ships exploded, torn apart by swarm weapons. Then another. But the rest pressed on, closing the distance to the main swarm ships. Suddenly, the remaining Trojan ships began to break apart. But this was no destruction. It was deliberate. The ships split open like seeds, releasing swarms of smaller craft. "What is this?" the Confederation commander demanded. "What are those?" Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "That, Commander, is humanity's answer to the swarm. We fight fire with fire." The smaller craft, each barely larger than a human, swarmed towards the void ships. As they approached, they began to change, mechanical limbs extending, attaching themselves to the hulls of the enemy vessels. "Nanite swarms," Sarah explained, "programmed to infiltrate and repurpose. Let's see how the void likes a taste of its own medicine." On the tactical display, Sarah watched as the swarm ships began to falter. Some stopped moving altogether, while others began to turn on their companions, firing weapons seemingly at random. "It's working," Mike exclaimed. "The nanites are disrupting their systems." But the battle was far from over. The void swarm, vast beyond imagining, began to concentrate its forces. Hundreds of ships converged on the infected vessels, destroying them without hesitation. "They're sacrificing their own to stop the nanites," Sarah realized. "Clever. The Confederation commander's voice came through again, this time tinged with something that might have been respect. Impressive humans. But the swarm is still too numerous. We cannot hope to infect them all. Sarah's mind raced. The commander was right. They needed something more, something to turn the tide decisively. "Captain," one of her officers called out, "I'm picking up some strange readings from the destroyed swarm ships. It's like they're talking to each other." Sarah's eyes widened. "Of course. Mike, remember our discussion about their communication. It's time to put that theory to the test." She turned to her communications officer. "Patch me through to all human ships, priority 1. As soon as the channel opened, Sarah began issuing rapid-fire orders. "All ships with electronic warfare capabilities, focus on the destroyed swarm vessels. They're still transmitting. If we can hijack that signal." Understanding dawned on the faces of her crew. If they could use the destroyed ships to send false orders to the rest of the swarm. The next few minutes were tense. Sarah watched as her ships maneuvered into position, electronic warfare suites working overtime. The swarm, still reeling from the nanite attack, didn't seem to notice. Suddenly, something changed. Swarm ships began to move erratically, some turning on each other, others flying off in random directions. "It's working," Mike shouted. "We're feeding them conflicting orders through their own network." The Confederation ships, quick to capitalize on the confusion, pressed their attack. Energy weapons lashed out, destroying swarm vessels by the dozens. As Sarah watched the tide of battle turn, she felt a mix of elation and disbelief. They were doing it. Humanity, the newcomers, the primitives, were saving the galaxy. But even as the swarm began to retreat, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The war was far from over, and humanity would need every ounce of its ingenuity to see it through. For now, though, they had done the impossible. They had given the galaxy hope. The aftermath of the battle was a sight to behold. Debris from void swarm ships floated in the vacuum of space, a testament to the unexpected turn of events. The Confederation fleet, still reeling from the sudden shift in fortune, regrouped around the small but now legendary human ships. On board the ESS Hope, Captain Sarah Chen let out a long breath. The adrenaline of battle was fading, replaced by a mix of relief and cautious optimism. Her crew, tired but jubilant, worked to assess damages and prepare for whatever came next. A beep from the communication console caught her attention. "Captain," her comm officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the Confederation flagship. It's the Council leader." Sarah straightened her uniform. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the willowy form of the Confederation leader. Its shimmering skin seemed to ripple with barely contained emotion. "Captain Chen," the alien began, its voice a mix of awe and disbelief. The Confederation owes you and your species a great debt." Sarah nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Counselor. But this was a team effort. We couldn't have done it without the Confederation's strength backing us up." The alien made a gesture that might have been a smile. "Your modesty is admirable, Captain, but let us not diminish your achievement. Your tactics, your technology, they were unlike anything we've seen. We severely underestimated humanity's potential." As the counselor spoke, other transmissions began to come in. Confederation ship captains, alien commanders, even some of the civilian leaders from nearby systems, all wanted to express their gratitude, their amazement at what the humans had accomplished. Mike, standing beside Sarah, whispered, "Looks like we're the toast of the galaxy, Captain." Sarah allowed herself a small smile, but kept her focus. "Counselor," she said, addressing the alien leader, "while we appreciate the kind words, we must not lose sight of the bigger picture. This was just one battle. The void swarm is still out there." The counselor's expression grew serious. "You are right, of course, which is why I have an important request. The Confederation Council is convening an emergency session to discuss our next steps. We would be honored if you would join us, Captain Chen. Your insights could be crucial in formulating our strategy moving forward." Sarah blinked in surprise. This was unprecedented. Humans, invited to a high-level Confederation strategy meeting. She could practically feel the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. "We would be honored, Counselor," she replied. "When and where?" As the details were arranged, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in such a short time. Just days ago, humans were seen as primitive newcomers, barely worth noticing. Now they were being hailed as saviors, innovators, key players in the galaxy's future. After the transmission ended, Sarah turned to her crew. "All right, people. We've made a good first impression. But the real work starts now. We need to prepare for this council meeting. I want every scrap of data from the battle analyzed. Every theory, every wild idea. I want it all. We're not just representing Earth now. We're representing humanity's place in the galaxy." As her crew scrambled to work, Sarah gazed out at the star-filled void. The void swarm was still out there, regrouping, adapting. But for the first time since this war began, there was hope. Humanity had proven its worth, shown that sometimes the newest players on the cosmic stage could change the game entirely. In the days that followed, news of the battle spread across the Confederation. The story grew with each telling. The tiny human fleet, the innovative tactics, the turning of the tide. On countless alien worlds, beings looked to the skies with new eyes, wondering about these humans who had done the impossible. As the ESS Hope docked at the massive Confederation Central Station, Sarah felt the weight of expectation. The eyes of the galaxy were upon them now. Humanity had earned its place at the table. Now they had to prove they deserved to keep it. The real challenge was just beginning. But Sarah Chen, and humanity behind her, was ready to face it head-on. The galaxy would never be the same again. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Confederation buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from thousands of worlds filled the chamber, their diverse forms a testament to the vastness of life in the universe. At the center of it all stood Captain Sarah Chen, flanked by her senior officers. The Confederation leader raised a hand, and silence fell over the assembly. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Confederation," the leader began, its voice resonating through the hall, "we stand at a crossroads. The Void Swarm, our greatest enemy, has been dealt a significant blow, and we owe this victory to the newest members of our galactic community, the humans." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Many aliens turned to look at Sarah and her team, some with awe, others with lingering skepticism. "Captain Chen," the leader continued, "please step forward and address the assembly." Sarah took a deep breath and walked to the center of the platform. Countless alien eyes focused on her. This was a moment that would define humanity's place in the cosmos. "Thank you, honored leader," Sarah began, her voice steady. "Members of the Confederation, I stand before you not just as a representative of Earth, but as a fellow sentient being who shares your desire for peace and prosperity in our galaxy." She paused, looking around the room. The victory against the Void Swarm was not just a human achievement. It was a testament to what we can accomplish when we combine our strengths. Humanity's creativity and adaptability, paired with the Confederation's advanced technology and vast resources, proved to be a formidable combination. Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sarah continued, her confidence growing. "But our work is far from over. The swarm will return, stronger and more adapted. We must be ready. And to do that, we must change how we think about galactic defense." She gestured to her team, who activated a holographic display. It showed a new type of ship, a fusion of human and Confederation technology. "We propose a joint fleet," Sarah explained. "Ships that combine the best of all our races. Confederation energy weapons with human kinetic systems. Alien shielding protecting hulls built with Earth metals. And crews made up of members from all our species, bringing together diverse viewpoints to outsmart our enemies." The hall erupted in discussion. Some aliens appeared excited by the idea, while others seemed hesitant. Sarah waited patiently for the noise to die down. The Confederation leader spoke next. An ambitious proposal, Captain Chen. But how do you address concerns about sharing advanced technology with a younger race? Sarah smiled. With all due respect, honored leader, I believe recent events have shown that younger doesn't necessarily mean less capable. We humans may be new to the galactic stage, but we bring fresh perspectives and solutions. Moreover, this wouldn't be just sharing technology. It would be creating something new together, something that belongs to all of us. Her words seemed to strike a chord. More and more aliens were nodding in agreement. An insectoid being from a distant system raised an appendage. And what of cultural exchange? How do we ensure harmony among such diverse crews? An excellent question, Sarah replied. We propose establishing a galactic academy, where members of all races can learn about each other's cultures, histories, and ways of thinking. This won't just help our military cooperation. It will foster understanding and friendship across the Confederation. The discussion continued for hours. Questions were asked, debates were had, and slowly, a consensus began to form. The galaxy was changing, and the Confederation needed to change with it. As the session neared its end, the Confederation leader called for a vote. Sarah held her breath as the results were tallied. The motion passes, the leader announced. We will move forward with the human proposals. A new era of galactic cooperation begins today. The hall erupted in cheers. Sarah felt a wave of relief and pride wash over her. They had done it. Humanity had not just earned its place among the stars. It had helped chart a new course for the entire galaxy. As the session ended, aliens of all kinds approached Sarah and her team, eager to discuss the future. There was much work to be done, challenges to overcome, and mysteries of the universe still to explore. But for the first time, they would face it all together. Sarah looked out at the sea of alien faces, now filled with hope and excitement. The galaxy had mocked the tiny fleet of human ships. Now that same galaxy looked to humanity as partners, innovators, friends. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, and humanity would help write every page.